Dr. Eliana Vasquez had been studying patterns in alien communication for most of her adult life, but even she never expected to stumble upon a discovery that would alter the fate of countless civilizations. In her sparse, sunlit office on the outskirts of Earth's leading xenolinguistics institute, she stared at a holographic screen crammed with symbols gleaned from a half-dozen species. They ranged from the fluid swirl of a Qwari script to the pictographic scrawl favored by the Ceruleans, who lived in a star system thought to be uninhabitable until contact was made just a few years earlier. Despite how different they all appeared, something subtle glimmered in their construction, unspoken similarities that hinted at a deeper, universal core. For centuries, humans had dreamed of forging alliances across the galaxy, had tiptoed through star systems, carefully greeting new species with open hands. Yet, friendly gestures didn't always translate to acceptance. Sometimes entire star-faring civilizations simply had no reason to trust these odd beings from Earth. Too many misunderstandings had spoiled attempts at further contact. Even the most gifted ambassadors struggled to negotiate a truce in languages that captured only fractions of each side's thoughts. Now, as Dr. Vasquez glided her fingers over the arcs of textual shapes on her console, the seeds of a solution were beginning to bloom. She believed real understanding might be possible if she was right about the code lingering beneath those alien tongues. Dusk fell outside the Institute's windows, and on the horizon, softly glowing transport vessels streaked across the sky, delivering scientists, travelers, and the occasional tourist to the spaceport. The Institute's cafeteria closed early on weekdays, leaving Eliana alone in the comforting hush of after hours. Doofer, her personal AI assistant, hovered near the top of her desk as a small sphere of light, occasionally dimming and brightening, as if it breathed. Cross-referencing Aquarii syllabic patterns with Cerulean mathematical graphemes, Doofer announced, projecting lines of text onto the wall. Analysis suggests a correlation near 83% for certain relational structures, particularly those referencing identity, location, and possession. 83%? Eliana muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. That's more than coincidental. Doofer, compare that to the glyphs from the Teravens. Let's see if we get a similar match. Heat maps and correlation graphs rippled through the air. Doofer blinked rapidly. Teravan glyphs appear to share a core logic behind how they structured data about themselves and their environment. While the actual symbols differ drastically, the manner in which they code relationships is statistically similar. Eliana's heart thumped with excitement. She scrolled through paragraphs of data, seeing parallel after parallel. Long ago, star-faring humans had glimpsed the possibility of an underlying universal grammar, some cosmic Rosetta Stone bridging the gulf between species, but serious progress had been elusive. Now, as these correlations lit up the holographic display, she realized that her years of scrupulous work might have cracked the code. If all these alien languages stemmed from the same conceptual bedrock, then with the right intellectual key, they could parse meaning between them. She might just have found that key. Exhausted but unwilling to forfeit her momentum, she poured herself a cup of synthetic tea that steamed faintly. She slid aside a stack of old-fashioned notebooks. Despite living in a digital era, she found solace in capturing new revelations with pen and paper, one idle scribble at a time. Was the pattern she saw the final puzzle piece? Tomorrow, she would gather her colleagues, present them her findings, and see if they reached the same conclusion, that there existed a universal code weaving itself through the tapestry of interstellar languages. Early the next morning, she called a small meeting with select members of the Xenolinguistic Council. The council had gathered in the Institute's Chamber of Tones, a circular room lined with resonance plates that could replicate the acoustic environment of nearly any known species. Representatives from the Diplomatic Corps, the Interplanetary Habitat Alliance, and a few other agencies took seats around a tall table. The overhead lights glowed a soft white, supplemented by the swirling walls of data. She introduced her new research, showing how each alien syntax could be distilled into a compact system of logic that might form the basis for universal communication. Her close colleague, Dr. Rudy Anders, frowned after reviewing the data. So you suspect that each species, no matter how different, must channel a fundamental system of expressing relationships and concepts, which we can theoretically decode? I do, Eliana answered. And once we build an interface that applies these findings, we can translate not just words, but context. This is crucial for the subtleties of diplomacy. We might avoid thousands of misunderstandings. One of the ambassadors, a man named Fallon Griggs, known for his caution, stroked his beard. We've seen illusions of patterns in the past that never quite came to fruition. How is this different? This time, we're not just matching vocabulary. We're mapping how information is structured, how subject-object relationships form, how context modifies meaning, all filtered through mathematical sets. Early signs suggest it works across multiple known languages. I have reason to believe it'll hold for those we've barely begun to decipher. A hush settled among them. Everyone in that room had tangled with the frustrations of interspecies communication, earth-shattering negotiations, torpedoed by a single misunderstood word or misread gesture. The possibility of a new era, one where species might at last share cultural nuances without needing to guess, hung in the air. Ambassador Griggs leaned back, tension in his jaw relaxing a bit. Dr. Vasquez will need to run a pilot test, gather more evidence. I'm intrigued, but caution is wise. I agree, she said. I suggest a collaborative venture with Terravan ambassadors. We've had friendly but limited contact with them. Our treaty could be vastly expanded if we show we can parse their language more accurately than ever before. A day later, Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Anders hopped aboard an interstellar transport bound for the Terravan homeworld. Their small vessel glided through a newly opened jump gate, which used advanced gravitational manipulation to fold space, making the trip a matter of days instead of months. The Terravans had once been mysterious, rumored to be warlike, but as new trade routes opened, they showed themselves to be rational and surprisingly curious. Still, they viewed humans with a guarded stance. Eliana believed that if she could pilot her budding translation code in a high-stakes conversation, it would prove once and for all that bridging species was possible. The craft touched down on Terava's vast starport, a shimmering complex embedded in what looked like lavender dust plains. Overhead, twin suns cast unusual shadows across the ground, and the horizon flickered in radiant purple. Eliana and Rudy were greeted by Terravan escorts, who led them past towers shaped like twisted spires. The Terravan city soared around them, vibrant lights, arching bridges, and waterways carved from the lavender earth. Every building's curves suggested a deep appreciation for harmonic geometry. Terravans themselves had lean, elongated bodies, with skin patterns reminiscent of swirling calligraphy. Their large, dark eyes scanned humans as they passed, some with curiosity, others with mild suspicion. They arrived at a domed structure that functioned as a center for scientific discourse. Their Terravan host, Scholar Raltak, greeted them with a formal gesture that translated as polite interest. Terravans had a language that relied heavily on nuanced shifts in posture and in fractal-like glyphs. Even with the standard translator devices, many intricacies were lost. But Eliana was about to use the new code-based interface on her wrist console, which she'd spent the entire journey refining. Inside Scholar Raltak's office, smooth, pale walls shimmered. The Terravan guided them to seats, then began speaking. The standard translator coughed out a halting mechanical voice. We greet your people. We wish to find synergy. We do not fear intentions. Eliana typed a quick command on her console. Light projected from her device, scanning the Terravan's gestures and audible speech. The code's algorithm dissected the language, identifying those deeper patterns she had mapped. After just a few seconds, a calmer, more naturalized voice began to speak. We welcome your presence among us. Our wish is to find shared purpose that might serve both of our peoples. We do not harbor suspicion toward your journey, though new acquaintances often require time to build trust." Rudy's eyes lit up. That was far superior to any previous translator's output. He uttered a greeting in return, but in English fully trusting Eliana's system to interpret. "Scholar Raltak, thank you for hosting us. Our desire is to share knowledge and hopefully form a lasting partnership." After scanning, the code reflected his words back in a melodic Teravan phrase accompanied by an overlay of swirling glyphs. Scholar Raltak's eyes widened in surprise. Teravans typically needed repeated visits to decipher such nuance from strangers, yet here was a subtlety-laden expression in their own language, delivered by an unexpected source. Raltak responded with a series of elaborate gestures that came through to English as, "We are intrigued by your readiness. This is an auspicious beginning." Rudy glanced at Eliana with a broad grin. They had just exchanged 4 lines of dialogue with no awkwardness, no stumbling translator errors, no ambiguous references. Eliana's approach was working. She exhaled a silent prayer of gratitude and turned back to their Teravan host. In the hours that followed, they spoke of technology, culture, and dreams for a stable future. They compared notes on zero-point energy generation, as well as Teravan artisanal crafts involving living crystals. By the end of the day, they had reached a cooperative agreement for knowledge exchange. Exhausted and elated, the humans retreated to their lodging, an elegant chamber with sweeping windows that framed Tariva's alien sky. Word traveled swiftly. The Tarivan leadership summoned them to a more formal negotiation the next day, one that might open new trade pacts and mutual defense treaties. Representatives of the Teravan Great Council assembled in a grand hall, the walls embroidered with fractal tapestries that pulsed with a faint bioluminescent glow. Each counselor stood on a raised dais. Their combined presence radiated centuries of venerable governance, reminding the humans how relatively new they were to interstellar politics. Still, the negotiations went smoothly. Eliana's system accurately translated the complexities of the Teravan language, including idioms that previously confounded Earth's interpreters. In turn, the Teravans gleaned a far more nuanced understanding of human proposals. Mistrust dissolved under the clarity and honesty of the discussion. By the meeting's end, Teravan Earth had the groundwork for an unprecedented diplomatic accord. Soon, news of the code-based translator's success spread back home. Over the next month, ambassadors from half a dozen other species requested demonstrations. Eager for an end to the short-sighted miscommunications that had often limited interplanetary relations, they tested Eliana's tools, and each time, the result stunned them. While the code occasionally needed minor adjustments for vocal anomalies or unusual mediums of expression, its utility proved more robust than anything humanity had tried before. Eliana found herself whisked from starport to starport, briefing delegates on how to adopt this newly revealed universal logic in their translator devices. She gave lectures in stately cerulean amphitheaters under turquoise skies, standing before beings who had once found human voices jarring to the ear. She joined symposiums on Aquarii ocean worlds, wearing specialized breathing gear and speaking through adapters that could convey meaning across watery hums. And everywhere she was met with cautious optimism ripening into genuine hope. The diplomatic corps began drafting treaties that had once been unimaginable. Through the subtle calibrations of the new code interface, Earth's proposals for shared technology, cultural exchanges, and mutual prosperity came through clearly. Meanwhile, Teravans, Ceruleans, and Aquarii offered insights that would have been lost if communication remained haphazard. Coordinated efforts emerged to tackle cosmic threats, the meltdown of unstable wormholes, the potential collisions of rogue comets threatening inhabited planets, and even charting unclaimed star systems for new settlement. For the first time, a genuine sense of interspecies cooperation blossomed. Long-standing barriers were crumbling. Still, not everyone was rejoicing. On Earth, Corporations that thrived on exploiting interplanetary misunderstandings began to worry. Some had professional translators on staff, and rumors spread that they were quietly plotting to sabotage Eliana's work. Darkness lurked in the corners of the galaxy. Too, there were warlords who thrived in chaos and who found the prospect of universal understanding threatening. Word arrived that a known pirate faction, the Erimar Corsairs, had placed a bounty on Eliana's head, seeing her invention as a threat to their manipulative ploys. If alliances strengthened, the Corsairs would have fewer unsuspecting targets who might be tricked into conflict or ransomed. Despite these dangers, humanity's leadership pushed forward, offering Eliana every security measure they could muster. Diplomatic vessels traveled in convoys through the jump gates, sometimes accompanied by small, agile escort ships. New treaties ensured that if anyone harassed a vessel carrying Eliana or her team, the combined might of multiple species would respond. It was a display of solidarity that Eliana herself found touching, albeit nerve-wracking. She had never envisioned that her academic pursuit of interstellar linguistics would become a linchpin of galactic peace. One week, while traveling between the Aquarii capital and a summit with the Cerulean Council, her convoy was ambushed by Eremiar Corsairs near a swirling nebula. Warning sirens blared inside the passenger compartment as their escorts darted out to meet the attackers. Through a porthole, Eliana watched streaks of laser fire arc through the vacuum, painting the blackness with bursts of color. Her heart pounded, fear gnawing in her stomach, but she noticed something else. Caravan ships warping into view on one side, and Cerulean flight craft on the other. Within minutes, the marauders found themselves outgunned by this surprising coalition. They fled, leaving Eliana's convoy unharmed. She and her team continued safely to the Cerulean Council meeting, albeit shaken, but also heartened by the display of unity. The Cerulean Council's main chambers stood perched atop a colossal natural rock spire, ringed by waterfalls that cascaded in shimmering glass arcs. Ceruleans were an amphibious species that lived comfortably both on land and in shallow waters. Their capital was composed of intricately woven habitats, merging natural stone with living coral-like growths. When Eliana arrived, the council members, adorned in swirling robes and glistening aquatic ornaments, welcomed her to speak about the code's broader implications for forging ties across the stars. She explained how bridging the language barrier extended beyond words. The system had begun to chart the intangible ways cultures conveyed respect, established social hierarchies, and expressed moral values. She showed them how each society's approach to honor and duty had deep parallels, though disguised beneath widely varied expressions. The code could tease out these vital threads, letting them see each other as more alike than different. The Cerulean Council, moved by her presentation, resolved to join the Terevans and humans in forming a tri-species council. Their purpose: to standardize interstellar law and mediate disputes before they became violent. The phrase, "break down our walls," became a recurring theme, echoed in both diplomatic assemblies and everyday street conversations. The universal code had become a moral symbol as well as a technological marvel. Back on Earth to formalize this new Tri-Species Council, Eliana found the atmosphere dramatically changed. Streets buzzed with news of cosmic alliances, and the once debated xenolinguistics funding was now praised as a historic investment. Artists conjured swirling murals capturing the new spirit of unity. Children studied alien scripts in school, some learning bits of Terevan or Cerulean. Even typical Earth politicians, often at odds with each other, seemed eager to align on this grand diplomatic wave. Sure, some resisted, warning that Earth was risking too much trust. And yes, certain corporations scowled as new regulations formed to prevent exploitation of allied worlds, but the general tide had turned strongly in favor of interstellar fellowship. On a crisp morning in the newly renovated diplomatic pavilion on Earth, the Tri-Species Council convened for the first time in a ceremony broadcast galaxy-wide. Eliana stood at the edge of the dais, her heart pounding with apprehension. She gazed around at the Teravan delegation clad in ceremonial attire embroidered with star maps, and the ceruleans gently moving in an undulating pattern that signified joyous anticipation. Senior Earth dignitaries looked resplendent in their formal suits and sashes, proud to host such a momentous event. Dr. Rudy Anders, who had been at Ileana's side from the beginning, gave her a reassuring smile. "This is it," he whispered. "The day we've been working toward." She nodded, swallowing a lump of nerves. "I can't believe how far we've come so quickly. We still have so much to learn, so many new languages, but this is a start." The noise in the chamber quieted as a cerulean official, her voice amplified by gentle acoustics, began the formalities. "Esteemed delegates and citizens throughout the galaxy, we gather here today to affirm a new era of understanding, built upon the code uncovered by Dr. Eliana Vasquez of Earth. Through it, we have discovered that no matter how separate our histories or how distinct our physiologies, there exists a shared foundation in how we interpret reality, a common thread that unites us all." Eliana felt goosebumps ripple across her arms. She thought back to the late nights in her office, the endless correlation checks, the data sets from half a dozen species, statistical anomalies that finally revealed themselves to be the scaffolding of meaning. And here she stood, witnessing the birth of an institution that would shape the next chapter of interstellar history. The Teravan representative stepped forward next. His translator, powered by Ileana's code, rendered his measured gestures and melodic voice seamlessly. The Teravan people once viewed outsiders with caution, having learned tough lessons in our ancient migrations. Yet the clarity afforded us by this universal approach has shown us the power of cooperation. With the combined efforts of Earth, Terava, and Cerulia, and the many civilizations sure to follow, we stand as a testament to the wondrous potential of unity. Ambassador Griggs presented Earth's pledge, addressing the delegates in a voice that resonated with subdued emotion. No stuttering misinterpretations marred his words. They rang true in Teravan tonal pulses and Cerulean aquatic rhythms, thanks to the code. We vow to protect our allies as ourselves, to share growth in technology and culture, and to champion the ideals of knowledge, freedom, and mutual respect. 3 separate banners were raised in unison, each bearing the symbols of Earth, Tariva, and Cerulia. The crowd broke into a universal applause through clapping, some via color shifts, some humming in aquatic frequencies. Still, all carried that same surge of exhilaration. Cameras hovered overhead, streaming the moment to star systems near and far. In that instant, cynicism seemed to melt away in favor of bright possibility. Over the next year, the Tricepis Council grew. Delegations trickled in from the cosmic corners. Some came from newly contacted star systems that had previously rebuffed human overtures, but now found them worthy of trust. Others came from older civilizations who had watched from afar, unsure if such unity was possible. Each found a seat at the expanding table, each species bringing a language whose underlying code patterns Eliana's system could decode. Philosophies were exchanged, joint scientific endeavors flourished, diplomatic crises that might have escalated before now found calm solutions, steered by an ever-improving universal translator. Even the once feared warlords struggled to rally support when entire populations realized just how much they all shared. Sure, disputes still arose, and policing them fairly was challenging, but as the universal code took shape across thousands of interactions, a new standard of fairness emerged. It wasn't utopia, yet it was a milestone. Fear of the other was tempered by genuine understanding. Eliana found herself more a mentor than a discoverer now. She led institutes dedicated to perfecting the code, bridging new dialects, and ensuring that no nuance was overlooked. She trained teams of xenolinguists who traveled to remote planets armed with portable quantum computing devices that could interpret the universal matrix. She struggled, sometimes, with the weight of the responsibility. Rivalry still existed, Some species refused to adopt what they deemed an overly human imprint on communication, and no invention could magically solve every difference or bury centuries-long grudges. But each time she felt disheartened, she recalled the thrill in Raltak's eyes. The day Tereva and Earth truly spoke as one. One evening, back on Tereva for a routine update to their translator technology, Scholar Raltak hosted Eliana at his personal residence. Their conversation looped across topics, from the intricacies of Terevan crystal design to Earth's annual celebrations. A gentle hush fell as they stared at the lavender Terevan sky. Stars glinted overhead, cool breezes swept across the spires. In the distance, city lights mingled with the glow of the pale twin suns, dipping below the horizon. Raltak sipped a beverage that smelled faintly of sandalwood. "Do you believe you have achieved your life's calling?" The question made Eliana smile. "Maybe I have, but there's more to do. We want to connect with newly discovered systems, refine the code for their unique forms of expression. Each new horizon we cross reveals more possibilities." Raltak inclined his head in a gesture that signified respect, tinged with optimism. If our peoples once believed ourselves so far apart, and now we speak freely, I wonder if it is our destiny to bring yet more worlds into a grand conversation. Perhaps the universe has many voices, waiting to harmonize. She felt a soft stirring of wonder. "Then let's keep going," she replied. "We have a long road ahead, but at least now we can walk it together." Years passed. The code's adoption spread across the known galaxy, forging alliances that would have seemed fantasy in prior generations. Human outposts mingled with cerulean architecture. Teravans and Aquarii collaborated on advanced propulsion technology. The Triset Council evolved into a sprawling union. Diplomatic academies sprang up on Earth, Terava, and Cerulia, training envoys in how to deploy the code effectively, maintain cultural sensitivity, and address ethical dilemmas. Surviving factions of pirates and warmongers still dwelled on the fringes, but found themselves increasingly marginalized. At the heart of it all, Eliana pressed onward, devoting her days to unraveling new dialects from the far side of the galaxy. She found that no matter how bizarre the grammar or how alien the phonetics, a consistent underlying pattern glowed through. Species after species discovered they each possessed an innate capacity to communicate on deeper levels than they had once imagined. Though the galaxy remained a place of challenges, one fundamental truth took root. Shared understanding fostered cooperation. Reality no longer felt so lonely and disconnected, each culture inventing its own meanings in isolation. Instead, diverse species recognized there were threads in a grand tapestry. Whenever conflict threatened to unravel relationships, an unshakable confidence in interspecies comprehension allowed them to weave it back together again. On a calm day in her Earth office, Eliana paused to gaze at the plaques on her wall. Diplomas, awards, tokens of appreciation from allied worlds. Her tired eyes fell on a framed piece of Teravan calligraphy given to her by Scholar Raltak. She traced the swirling shapes with her mind. That gift embodied more than a single language. It signified a break in the barriers that had once divided entire civilizations. As she powered down her console for the evening, she thought about the ancient obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. Tribal disputes on Earth had once raged for centuries. It felt almost laughable now. With the code fostering honesty and clarity around them, misunderstandings that had toppled worlds became minor hurdles. The dream that had once felt so distant had become an ever-evolving reality. There was still friction, of course. No code would magically undo the complexities of politics and ambition. But now, those differences could be brought into the open, and more often than not, resolved peacefully. Stepping outside into the Earth twilight, she watched the sky come alive with streaks of light from spacecraft ascending into orbit. If she closed her eyes, she could imagine them carrying ambassadors to far-off worlds, scientists trading ideas in Teravan laboratories, and cerulean explorers surveying new planets. Along each route, countless voices would converse in harmony that once was unimaginable. And in the hush of that realization, Ileana felt the profound solace of knowing that understanding had at last crossed the barriers dividing civilizations.